Welcome everybody to the first of 4 artist interviews as part of the Immersive Sonic Journeys project between MIT University and Melbourne Recital Centre. My name is Harvey, and I'd like to start off by acknowledging that today we're meeting and in conversation on the lands of the Eastern Kulin Nation, particularly the Warong Bunurong language groups, and I pay my respects to their elders past and present, and also note that this is unceded land and it always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Thank you. It gives me great pleasure today to welcome Charlotte Leamon, one of our artists, as part of the project. And what we've organised in and around the walk that you can do as part of the project is to do artist interviews around 12:30 each day of the project. I just thought I might start off just saying a few words on where the project came from and how it started. It was initially through a partnership, an Israel partnership between RMIT and Melbourne Recital Centre. And the centre were interested in ways that they could attract audiences into the spaces at the times when there were concerts. That was part of the initial brief. And initially to look at some kind of pilot project on what that might be. So in addition to introducing visual art, what we proposed then is that that could include sonic art as part of that experience of the foyers and stairwells. Now, because of the nature of the building, it's all acoustically designed, and which means because it's designed to keep sound out, but also that sound doesn't transfer between the circulation system of the building and back into the main concert halls. It means it's incredibly isolated and a really unique acoustic to a building in Melbourne. So if you go to most buildings in Melbourne, you're going to be presented with quite a low throbbing sound, which is usually the plant and equipment, often coupled to part of the building, and can be incredibly pervasive. Not so with this particular building here. It's incredibly quiet as you walk around it. And that was very attractive because then it meant you had really unique listening conditions no matter where you were. In addition to that, because the circulation system is obviously designed to get people in and out of the concert hall quickly, it does weave around the whole of the 2 performance spaces, I think, kind of like a giant cochlea wrapped around the building. And so what we did was to be very careful and strategic about where we put loudspeakers to get the smallest number for the most maximum effect. So the actual system itself is actually not very big, 8 channels in the main stairwell and 6 in the blue stairwell at the back. Aside from that, the project commenced in February this year. We put a national call out for works and selected 4. And in February this year, we did a workshop with the 4 artists at Style Sound Studios, between the studios and also members of the Design and Sonic Process research group at RMIT, and then also had half a day down at the centre as well. And which brings us to our first guest, Charlotte Leamon, who's one of our full commissioning composers as part of that one. And so Charlotte, I sort of want to ask you a couple of questions about the piece and the process and outside of it first of all. I thought I might first of all start off with that yesterday was the first time you heard the piece in the actual spaces, in live spaces. I'm just wondering, what was your impression on hearing it in the space over lots of loudspeakers?
Well, I think initially it was just very nice to hear it in the space. I have been working on this since February, so to hear the work created for this space finally in the space was just wonderful and what I hoped it would be. It was really interesting because this whole year it was like, where would the speakers go? Kind of what would the layout be? And through that whole experience, I kind of tried to cater the piece a bit to fit the area. So kind of a big concern of mine was this main stairwell and how loud things would be, where sounds would sit, where kind of bass would resonate or the higher tones would resonate as well, because in February we played, I think we had speakers up that top level, and I played a work which I thought kind of represented I did play one of my works and another works that was very spectral and granular to see how that would fit in the space. And I realized that in that big, vast space, it didn't resonate as well. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna have to create something a bit unique to what I normally create. And then that created, when we experimented in the blue stairwell, the like spectral granular things really carried really well. So that kind of led me to think that I wanted to create two works. So that's why I did kind of a drone material in this main stairwell so that it would fit that space, and then a more spectral granular piece for the blue stairwell, which kind of would carry. So yeah, when we were working yesterday in the blue stairwell, I was really happy because it did work how I wanted to, and I did put a lot of reverb in the piece, which I wasn't sure if that would just be too much kind of reverb on reverb because of that big echoey corridor, but it worked really nicely. And then yeah, the drone material in this big kind of, I don't know, I call it the honey stairwell. It's just what I've been calling it all year because of the honeycomb paint. But yeah, the drone material really carries really beautifully in that space. So I was very happy with it, yeah.
And so it sounds like in that case the piece did translate as you thought it might, because when those first impressions, did you find they carried through the compositional process, or did they sort of drift away after a time when you imagined a completely different space?
I think I was always very connected to the space because these works, I wanted them to be representative of the space. So like just the textures and the colours that are so prominent through this building and that I know have taken so much time to be thought out when it was built. And then that was what, the centre, that was kind of what the whole commission was about, was encouraging people to walk through. So I really wanted to accentuate these colours and these textures of the space. So I always had, the space in mind through the pieces, the whole time.
And I suppose when you're, as composers, when we're thinking about a work, we always have that idealised first performance and the space and the audience and that sort of thing. But then it's interesting you pick up on architectural features within that as well. So I remember yesterday when we were standing at the back, in the side corridor, you spoke about, because of the sparkle or something, I think you referred to, the way the light moved through the space. Because that's probably a bit unusual. You wouldn't normally think about a musical work as somehow going to be reactive to the light in the space.
Yeah, I think when I started exploring just electroacoustic works in general, I've discovered that I really find this, the thing I love about it is that you can kind of touch things through sound. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like an experience that I found very unique to electroacoustic music. So that was what was really great about this space, is that I could kind of feel and imagine how these things would translate. So yeah, that sparkle is like the glass in this stairwell, and how the light does kind of reflect and kind of bounce, and so that's why it's called refractional, because it's kind of this light that bounces, and then when you're going into the blue stairwell and there's kind of slats of windows and how the light comes through. And it's, so I kind of just constantly thought about these biomes, and I kind of thought about it in terms of an environment, a man-made environment, which is, I normally do natural environments, so it was really nice to explore, a man-made environment. Yeah.
I was going to ask you a bit about some of your other work. How does this piece extend or take off at a tangent from some of your previous work?
Good question. So I just finished my Bachelor of Music at the Sydney Conservatorium, which was in classical composition. So the first couple of years, when did I start? 2021, I think? 2020, because it was COVID. I was meant to have a gap year, and then I needed to do something, and I was like, I'll just start my degree early, so I started it through 2020. But for the first 2 years, I was just exploring chamber music. And then I think in those couple of years, I did a class with Leamon, which was exploring more electroacoustic works, which kind of piqued my interest. And then I did some more classes on installation and electroacoustic music. And then it really piqued my interest just how tangible it was to me. So in 2023 is when I started working with Daniel Blencorn, who's been my composition supervisor, and that's when I really started to explore electroacoustic works more. I initially was really interested in doing live instruments with fixed media, and then became interested in just fixed media, these electroacoustic works. Because the call for this was at the end of 2023, so I was pretty new to electroacoustic music still. But I thought, this is like perfect to what I want to do. It's about a space, and it's been really nice to make something for a space that is going to then be in that space. Because everything else I've made has just been into the abyss kind of for headphone listening. So I was really excited to create these granular works, which is kind of the most, I guess, the best way to explain my previous works. Is granular, spectral, constantly moving. And I wasn't sure how that was going to work in this space, as well, because initially we were talking about that we didn't know how long the duration would be, if they would be played for like a few hours or maybe even days. So I was like, well, I'm not sure how these constantly moving works are going to work, especially for the for the people who work here, if it's constantly being played, if eventually they'll go, oh, I'm sick of this. So I wanted to really create something, which is why I split those two stairwells, because the blue stairwell is pretty isolated, so that this one here could be more accessible and hopefully not get tiresome if it were to be played for hours, pretty much. So yeah.
I'll just go back to and draw back to where you're talking about the idea of touch as you were going through the building, and then also that idea of what you draw on for a composition, and particularly this type of project. So for the last 2 decades or so, I've spent a lot of time around visual people and designers. And so when they would look out of this window here at the Recital Centre, could tell you lots of stories about what textures are referencing, what materials are referencing, what windows are that particular proportion, and what's the affordance, and it would go on and on and on. And they would be drawing all of these links effectively through the visual experience of this space. We don't often do that in sound and music. I think anyway, to the same degree it does that. And I've always been interested in, that's probably my own interest in, say, things like soundscape studies and then electroacoustic music as a way of being able to make similar connections back into auditory culture, effectively. Now, within, say, soundscape studies, someone like Stephen Feld's work that I found very interesting, because he does talk about, particularly with the Kaluli people, that relationship between language and the sounds of the environment. So when I say we don't do it, I think we actually do. We just don't realise we're doing it all the time. That I know when I've been involved with we did a concert for the Canadian electroacoustic community, and then a couple of years ago, a couple of similar to your work, very granular, very really assertive, strident sound. You'd walk out of the concert and think, I can still hear the piece. It would be something happening in the city, and so it was starting to draw those connections. And so that's a long way of asking, what sort of connections are you hoping the audience might draw between listening to your work in the building and maybe going back outside?
Yeah, well, this kind of sparkle sound. So I took quite literally all the materials that we used. So the glass was a big one, so I used samples of glass and then kind of reworked them, edited them, put effects and everything on to make it different. What I have explored previously is taking something familiar that you know very well, whether it's a natural environment like birds or trees or wind, or something like an instrument, and reworking it so that it becomes kind of unrecognizable. So that was kind of the approach I took with this, was taking things like glass, even though I don't think people think of glass sounds like this, so it was not quite edited, but like extremely, as I do with things that are familiar, but editing it in a way that creates drone material. So glass was a big one, the metal as well on that main stairwell. And then I started to add things like voices, which interestingly, I think all of the pieces except like 2 or 3 use voice.
Jane and I were talking about it yesterday. I think that even 2 of the works that we programmed from previous commissions of the DSP research group, one of them as well uses a lot of voice. So
yeah, which is really interesting because none of us talked at all about it. So that pretty much all of us used voice. For me, I used voice because it's this connection between audience and the music in the centre is kind of the linking point. I was kind of like scrolling the internet at the beginning of this to find any information about how this centre was built. And I came across the video, I think for the 10th year anniversary for this building. And the architect Ian McDougall was talking about how to him it was this like music box, is I think how he words it. So it's holding the music in, like not just the concert halls, but the centre. So I found this kind of connection between voice, between the audience coming from the outside in, and the music that is played in the concert halls was kind of the linking point. And I wanted to create this kind of ethereal sense in this main stairwell where you come in and you are here and you can see everything outside, and it kind of feels like you're like not frozen in time, but like you're very uniquely looking at everyone carrying on doing their, going to their jobs, doing whatever important things they need to do, and this building just kind of like captures you in this like moment. So I kind of wanted this, I took inspiration from Max Richter's on the nature of daylight, and this like harmonic cyclical, it just felt very angel-like, I don't know, that kind of harmonic progression. So I took that because I had this feeling of like, I'm here in this moment, and as well because of the daylight coming through. I'm here in this moment as everyone else is continuing, and I'm kind of stuck here. In a beautiful way, I think. And then the blue stairwell, just the blue stroke in me like water. So I made it very water-based as that blue stairwell, and embracing the height of it and the echo-ness and kind of how water moves through space, kind of, is how that one inspired me. And I say in it like, come up the stairs with me. So I was imagining like people walking up and me kind of like leading them through the centre with my voice. And I never normally record. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a singer. I'm like used to singing choirs, but I wouldn't say I'm a singer. So to use my voice was kind of very exposing in my works, especially me talking felt like, I don't know, breaking that fourth wall kind of between me as a composer and the audience, because I normally just sit back and I'm like, that's out there now, and like I'm not connected. So to put my voice in was kind of a bit daunting, but in a good way, because it connects, the voice connects the listener, the centre, and the music that's held, and then kind of this outside perspective that you get.
This what you're saying about the voice reminds me of the, I know again from the Work of the World Soundscape project, talking about voice as an indicator of scale in the soundscape. That if a soundscape is in what they would call balance, you should be able to hear a voice. In other words, a voice is not drowned out. Voices, plural, are not drowned out by everything else going on around them. So there's that idea that we can work with the voice in an environment such as this one, because I think we've all noticed as we've been sitting and listening for the last couple of days, it is a very strange thing to be able to be sitting in quite a kind of controlled environment, acoustically controlled environment, and then look out at the city. And so we're still seeing the city going around us, but not with that soundscape. There's this other soundscape. I had the same thing. It's sort of a slight out-of-body experience between the visual doing one thing and the sound doing something completely different. And it's not we're not watching film or anything like that at all. You could get up and look around and do all of that. So Yeah, it has been a strange listening experience in that one as well, to do that. But just then returning back to, you were saying that you did study some installation and practice that. Could you imagine extending that now that you've done this particular piece and doing other installation type works?
Definitely, yeah. I did, an installation class this semester, so I would have started it in like August and finished in November. And it taught me a lot, that class, and it also left me feeling quite daunted for this coming up, because I was like, my teacher was talking a lot about spaces like this and not making the material too much, because if people are walking through and especially if it's on for a long time, and not making it too much. So then I thought, oh gosh, this is mine too much. So I was a bit worried. But I think that's something that I'd like to explore further, is hearing more granular spectral works and exploring that in spaces, because sometimes it is kind of more drone material that slowly evolves so that it doesn't get tiresome for the listener. But I kind of approached it the opposite way and thought, well, if I make it clearly kind of like a piece, and if it was to be a loop, then someone knows like to move on, and then I can make it the way I want to make it, a granular piece. So that's something I'd really like to explore more, is in spaces, how to elevate spaces, and use wherever it is, if it's in a building, using the materials again, or if it's in a natural environment, to use those samples of that natural environment to elevate the space, but in a granular spectral way, so that I can keep what I enjoy doing it, is this constantly moving pieces. So yeah.
And I do remember that from your submission work, that you did have that very granular type work, and it's just I like where you chose to go into the blue stairwell with that particular and into the blue stairwell with that particular, that using that contained environment in that particular way, that you can be a lot more, again, kind of assertive or forthright with that material in that particular space. But just so for people who aren't aware, the two spaces have a very distinct orientation. The blue stairwell, as we call it, because it's a blue stairwell, is very vertical. And your experience of walking through, you go up by about it's actually about five or six levels, I think. When I say that, there are stopping platforms, points where you feels like it's kind of natural to stop. And so you actually ascend through the sound field as you go up, and that's where we put speakers for that one. The one at the front of the building is much more horizontal, still with a big vertical, but you traverse that on the diagonal. And so again, that's actually quite unusual in terms of performance or listening environments. Normally it's almost pictorial. You're looking at a screen, you're looking at an image, speakers on each side. If you're lucky, yes, you get height. If you're really lucky, you get sound underneath you as well in a full three-dimensional field. I suppose now, having done these pieces, would you even think about the way you do an instrumental work differently? Could you imagine it would go back the other way, back into your instrumental work?
I think that's difficult. I've always felt very separate with my chamber music or orchestral music and my electroacoustic music. It's like two different hats that I put on, because the process is completely different. And that's why I found it difficult at first doing fixed media with instruments, because you've got to do both at the same time. And I just found it very difficult. But I would like to keep integrating them more and make that process kind of more smooth between the two, because it is difficult changing constantly between the two and having the process very different. I think it has in the past impacted how I write chamber music, in terms of I just did my thesis on indeterminate notation, and so I kind of relate it in that way as more time-based. So my electroacoustic, fixed media things are always very non-time based. It's a kind of.
What do you mean by non-time based?
I guess just I never think of it in time.
In the electroacoustic world, so
Yeah, it's always more an evolution of sound. So I approach it in a very non-linear, just evolution of sound and how certain sounds will evolve. And so when I do indeterminate notation, which, for those who don't know, indeterminate notation is just notation that's not determinate. So maybe you don't have time, or you have seconds instead, or you don't have pitch. You just say words instead, like evoking a feeling or something. So when I do chamber music like that, then it's kind of putting on that electroacoustic hat of I'm leaving something, whether it's time and I'm making it non-linear and it's up to the performer, or pitch and kind of leaving that up to the performer. But yeah, I would like to integrate them more. They're just very different processes. I'm still figuring that out.
They are, though, because we grow, I mean, by the time we sort of get to tertiary education, we know the sounds of those instruments really well. We've grown up with them, we know them through lots of different repertoire, we know them in lots of different performance contexts. When you shatter and granulate a glass pane, that's not something you hear every day. This involving demolition work, I suppose. But there is that sense of exploration through a single sound, and it'd be interesting to see if you could imagine even the same process in the same project. Because one thing we did talk about with this particular project was, would we look at works that were in, as they are for this one, an installed version, and then would there be a composition version, say in the salon? And so you could walk between a time-based linear version of it, and then one where it's not timed at all. You're actually walking through the space like you are in this one. So we'll see anyway. That might be the next version. But from there.
Sounds good. Sign me up.
I just wondering, we do have a small audience with us today, and we have been doing some audio recording for later use. But if anyone had any other questions at all or insights they wanted to drop in.
I was curious.
Might just hand your microphone if that's okay.
Hi. Thanks for really interesting stuff. I was just curious about the when you were talking about the multimodality, like the interest in the light and how the sounds kind of bind to the light. What is it about electroacoustic music you think that kind of lends itself to that kind of multimodality?
I think a lot of it comes down to my experience with, I guess, listening environment. So whenever I've heard chamber orchestral music, it's been like performers, so the composer's done their thing, performers, and then audience, and it's felt separate to me. But then when I came across electroacoustic works, and it's mostly been whether it's in gallery spaces or like this, an installation work where you're moving through and you kind of feel just immediately way more immersed in the sound. And so that feeling of space, the environment you're in, and the listener being absorbed in it, and how the sound can kind of be that, it's just that symbiosis between the kind of the three of you, is that sound, the space, and the listener. It just feels way more, to me, immersive. And so it just makes sense somehow to me in my compositional work to always embody the space if it's being made for a space, so that it feels very connected and more immersive. I hope that answers your question.
Good. Well, what we might do is wind up now, because we've got about 50 minutes before we hit play again, to then jump into the afternoon sequence of work. So just join me in thanking Charlotte Leamon for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. And there'll be another talk tomorrow with Jane Sheldon, who's one of the other artists in the project, and we look forward to seeing people again then. Thank you.